More than 23 million Americans live further than a mile from a grocery store and don't have access to a car. That can make it incredibly difficult to access fresh food, even in the best of times. During the pandemic, when public transit is truncated, and even if you can get there, going into a grocery store is not advised for those at risk of complications from COVID-19, this problem has gotten even worse. We used to talk about these as food deserts, a term to describe neighborhoods without easy access to a grocery store. A desert is a natural phenomenon, however, and the term suggests an empty wasteland of a neighborhood. There's nothing natural about this situation, and these neighborhoods aren't empty. A better term is food apartheid. A lack of access to fresh foods affects people of all races, but Black and brown people are disproportionately affected. There's nothing natural about that. Another important term is food mirage. This describes a situation where people might have access to a supermarket, but they lack access to the wealth necessary to purchase fresh foods. As more and more of us face food insecurity, figuring out how to increase access to and the availability of fresh foods is ever more important. On this tour, I'll show you some of the ways Baltimoreans are addressing these needs. I'll start by introducing you to some of the urban farms in the city. I'll then tell you about Baltimore's Arabber tradition and how Arabbers are bringing fruits and vegetables to people right to their doors. I'll end with a whirlwind tour of the city's many and growing farmers markets, where neighbors can connect with local farmers and fill their food baskets. Baltimore boasts a lot of farms right in the city limits. One you can reach on UMBC Transit is Pop Farm. Located at 14 North Schroeder Street, it is a volunteer-led garden supported by the Southwest Partnership and the University of Maryland Baltimore's Community Engagement Center. UMBC's own Courtney Hobson from the Drescher Center for the Humanities is part of their powerful leadership team. Stop by to check out what's growing. Learn more about them at popfarm.org. Baltimore Free Farm is located on Ash Street in the Hamden neighborhood. They are, quote, an egalitarian collective of gardeners and activists who aim to provide access to healthy food for all. They manage several garden spaces and host food programs, including Food Not Bombs, which cooks meals in the community garden and serves them throughout the city on Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. They also help coordinate Food Rescue Baltimore, recovering food that would otherwise be wasted and distributing it around the city. Learn more about them at baltimorefreefarm.org. Another great community farm is Filbert Street Community Garden, located in the Brooklyn-Curtis Bay neighborhood in far south Baltimore. They offer garden plots and also boast robust animal and wildlife projects, including, that's right, the largest community bee yard in the United States, bat houses, chickens, ducks, and even goats, who help keep the garden clear of brush as they munch their way through and around the land. These are just 3 of the many gardens and farms around the city that help increase access to fresh food for everyone. You can learn more about these farms and find out how to get involved at farmalliancebaltimore.org. I next want to introduce you to an exciting food project coming out of the Cherry Hill neighborhood. The Black Yield Institute's guiding motto is, quote, cultivating self-determination through Black land and food sovereignty. They produced a documentary titled Baltimore's Strange Fruit, a story of food apartheid and the struggle for sovereignty. Directed by Eric Jackson and Maddie Hardy, the film gives a great overview of the ways racial capitalism works to produce food apartheid in Baltimore and the way organizers are working to make Black sovereignty over land and food a reality in the city. You can rent it on Vimeo. Black Yield Institute is also working to establish a food co-op in Cherry Hill. The neighborhood has been without a grocery store for 15 years. The Cherry Hill Food Co-op will, in their words, be a grocery store owned and operated by the residents of Cherry Hill for the benefit of our community. Our principles are based on the importance of Black land ownership and food sovereignty. Learn more at blackyieldinstitute.org and cherryhillfoodcoop.com. I next want to introduce you to a Baltimore tradition that has brought fresh food to people's doors for over a century by way of colorful horse-drawn carts. The Arabber tradition began in the early 19th century up and down the East Coast, and many African Americans entered this accessible form of entrepreneurship, especially after the Civil War. As white workers entered factories during World War II, Arabbing became a job done almost entirely by African Americans. You can still see Arabbers on the streets of the city, carts heavy with produce and other goods, calling out to neighbors about what's for sale. The Arabber Preservation Society was formed in 1994 to help save the tradition, as it was undermined by the expansion of grocery stores, new zoning and vending regulations, and concerns about animal welfare. There are 3 stables in the city that host Arabbers and their horses, and the Carlton Street stable, dating back to the 1850s, is thought to be the oldest continuously operating stable of its kind in the entire country. Arabbers currently play an important role during the COVID-19 pandemic. Not only are they bringing food to people whose access is even more constrained by the economic crisis, reduced transit service, and more, they are also distributing public health information and masks. In a state where 31% of the population is African American, but African Americans comprise over 50% of the deaths from COVID-19, this work is more vital than ever. Learn more about them at arabbers.com and read the latest from Ron Cassie in his recent article from Baltimore Magazine. I want to end this story about food access in Baltimore with a tour of some of the city's many farmers markets. I personally walk up to the Waverly Farmers Market in Baltimore every single Saturday morning to get produce and the best baked goods in the city. Founded in 1980 and located at 32nd and Barclay Streets, the Waverly Farmers Market connects local and regional farmers, artisans, fishmongers, chefs, florists, and more with neighbors and shoppers who come from all over the city to enjoy this year-round Saturday market. The biggest market in the city and the state, the Baltimore Farmers Market and Bazaar, is located underneath the Jones Falls Expressway at Holiday and Saratoga Streets. In addition to the usual suspects, the market usually boasts vendors selling clothing, bath and body products, fashion accessories, home furnishings, art, and even artisan hula hoops from Baltimore Hoop Love. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, the market is only offering food, but with all the farmers, bakeries, and food vendors, it's still a great place to start a Sunday. Baltimoreans are lucky to have access to even more neighborhood markets, from Druid Hill Farmers Market in Druid Hill Park on Wednesday afternoons to the Baltimore Museum of Industry Market in Federal Hill and Locust Point. Markets are also found on Pratt Street, at Cross Street Market, McKeldin Square downtown, Fells Point, and monthly at Lake Montebello in Northeast Baltimore. Learn more about them at baltimore.org. The link will be at the end of this show. Thank you for touring some of Baltimore's many gardens, farms, and markets with me. We've all got to eat, and all of us should have easy and affordable access to our area's agricultural bounty. Thank you to all the farmers, Arabbers, activists, organizers, and funders who move us closer to a world of food justice every day.